Well, it's interesting because you definitely have two sides of the fan base here. Different depending, I guess, on which recruiting service you might follow. There's some that were thinking that OU was really not much of a focus for Xadavien Sims, based on some of the visits, based on some of the things you heard, probably outside of the kid's mouth and around those people directly around him. And then you had some people that were probably listening a little bit closer to the recruit himself, and I think he kind of told people what they really wanted to hear. Um, you know, I was a teenager at one point. I made a lot of poor decisions with a lot of immaturity at that stage of my life, so I kind of understand that. Hopefully, he learns from that and chooses to handle things a little bit better going forward in life. That's part of growing up and becoming an adult. But I think it kind of depends on which person you were looking for your source. There, were you looking for an answer from Xadavien Sims from the people around him in his mouth, or were you looking for the actual tea leaves and the signs of what are people in Oregon hearing, what are people in Oklahoma hearing and feeling? And so I think if you were looking in the latter there, you probably weren't surprised by this particular situation. And yes, he's a guy that OU wanted. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but there's a lot of discrepancy in his rankings. I think rivals have
Hmm.
him highly and some other services don't have him nearly as highly. He's still a good player. He's still probably top 250, top 300 type of guy, something that you definitely want at OU. But at the end of the day, if OU said, hey, we want to pick and we can pick and choose whoever we want on the defensive line, Xadavien Sims is probably pick 5, 6, 7, somewhere along those lines of guys that OU's currently targeting. Look at the graphic we put out a few weeks ago, the fearsome foursome. He wasn't on there mainly because I think we didn't think he was necessarily looking at OU that close,
Nope.
and he's not as highly ranked as some of those other guys. So hopefully he has success, but I think OU is going to have bigger fish that they're going to be able to pull in at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, you make a really good point, Adam. And just kind of looking at the list here, some of the guys that Oklahoma is still in a really good position for. Obviously, a few more months away from the early national signing day. Obviously, Nigel Smith, David Stone, Williams Winery, and Joseph Jonah Ajanye. Four guys. If you put some truth serum in Todd Bates's coffee, those are four guys that are significantly ahead of Xadavien Sims. But one of the things, especially with Oklahoma transitioning into the SEC, is that even though yes he isn't in your top three or four choices, you still have to have that depth. You still have to build the quality of talent in that defensive tackle room. And that's obviously something where, I know that he's the number two overall player in the state of Oklahoma, depending on what rankings you're looking at, which platform, but it's still at a position of need. It's still a big body. It's still a guy, that has a lot of the tools that you see some of the, more successful defensive linemen in the collegiate rankings, the way that they're able to perform with those tools. But again, I think that one of the biggest things is it's not so much the fact that Oklahoma wasn't able to close out on this kid. I think from some of the things that we were hearing, I think that more people were thinking that this was a surefire thing than it actually really was in terms of Xadavien Sims. Yes, we know that he liked Oklahoma. He was almost close to committing to Oklahoma at one point, but obviously he makes the trip out to Eugene, Oregon. Dan Lanning, that recruiting staff, that program gave this kid a lot to think about. And I think that once he, kind of left Eugene, made his way back to Oklahoma, I think that, the decision was kind of made from there. And then, like you alluded to, the immaturity, being a 16, 17-year-old kid, there's so many things, and we can talk about the message board idiots here in just a minute, but, there's 99% of the population that will never be in the position that some of these high profile recruits are. So, who's to say that you would be able to handle some of these situations any better or any differently than the way that it does? But obviously, you do wish that some things would have changed. Obviously, there's some stuff kind of going on behind the scenes, some of the things that the way that Sims and the C4 group kind of went about this decision and informing Oklahoma. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you've still got 4 to 5 really good, elite, higher ranked recruits at that position group. And obviously, it's up to Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis and Brent Venables to close the deal on this because, again, momentum. I think that Oklahoma still has a good amount of momentum out on the recruiting trail. But by no means is this a black eye on this coaching staff, or especially Todd Bates. I think that there's a lot of unfair criticism out there. So let's give it a little bit more time because no doubt about it, Todd Bates isn't going to knock down one or two of these guys and bring them on board.
If you're not on Twitter or not connected to one of the recruiting sites, you probably don't realize what happened after that. But Message Board Genius, one of the Twitter accounts that gets photos sent to them of crazy things said on message boards, they tweeted out something that basically just showed, hey, OU fans being upset about Xadavien Sims. People saying things probably, that are pretty easy to say when you don't have your face out there. You're hiding behind an avatar. that's kind of normal. That's par for the course when a guy picks someone other than OU. I think that's all going to blow over. Every fan base has those types of crazy people, and really, it's kind of surprising me that it happened for Xadavien Sims because, again, half of the recruiting services probably were saying, "Hey, it's a legit possibility," and some hadn't talked about him in a long time. So I think OU fans probably, if they were tuned into the right sources, they probably should have known that, hey, this may not go OU's way because there's just not a whole lot of smoke in OU's direction.
Mhm.
So, but overall, I think it's something that's going to blow over. It's going to be forgotten pretty quickly because this is something that happens pretty much everywhere. And there are a lot of good things about the
Mhm.
OU fan base that recruits do love. They're getting a lot of love, even though we
Yes.
always say don't tweet at recruits, but they see a lot of the
Yes.
love on Twitter.
Well, I mean, Adam, you just go back and you even go look at Sims's, commitment post where he did commit to the Ducks. You go down and you used to look at, 95% of the comments that are in that section from OU fans are all, them wishing this kid the best of luck. Obviously, wish we could have had you in an Oklahoma uniform, but, good luck out in Eugene, beat Tebow out there at USC, take care of business. But I do think that, yes, all major college football programs, all of these fan bases. Yes, we love the passion. That's what makes college football so great. It's what makes it the best sport in the country. But there's kind of a fine line between being passionate and being a super fan and caring about your team, and just I don't know, just going one step too far with some of the things that people say online. I mean, Adam, it's kind of crazy. The obviously message board geniuses, they capitalize on that. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of clicks that come from posting something like that. So, fair play to them. That's the job. That's par for the course. But I think that way too many people put stock in what Sooner Dad 1964 has to say on the message boards about a 17-year-old kid that he's never meet or that he's never met, that he's never gonna meet. So it's just again, it's these people hiding behind their keyboards that think that their opinion matters. And I got to run to the mess. I got to run over to Sooner Scoop. I got to run over to Rivals to to give my 2 cents. It doesn't matter. Let the kid be. Respect the kid's decision, and let's focus on the kids that actually want to play in Oklahoma uniform. So that's all I want to say on that. But yeah, just it it's
Oh,
terrible.
yeah, not the best week or so of OU recruiting, and I would say to OU fans, buckle up because this is defensive line, elite defensive lineman recruiting, and we're going to go through probably some of these same things with other guys that OU currently leads for, maybe like a
Hmm.
Williams Winery or
Hmm.
Joseph Jonah Janye, who just came back from a visit from Georgia.
Hmm.
Winery just came back from a visit from A&M. So I think there's going to be some bumps along the way. Buckle up, like we're going to get some of these guys. We may not get all of them, but OU's positioned themselves really well here. Let me
Hmm.
ask you overall, and I guess Danny Okoye is another one I should mention there. OU
Hmm.
surging in his potential recruitment. He feels like, to me, kind of like a lot like Colton Bosick last year. Like culturally, he's a match for Brent Venables and that
Hmm.
program. Just hearing some of his interview, that dude's mature. He's ready to be an OU Sooner and really
Hmm.
fit well in this program. Just a matter of like, is he able to overcome some of the family allegiances to OSU? And it's a little different there because OSU may not necessarily feel like they have a chance of him, may not be recruiting him that hard. Anyway, a little off track there. But overall, from an OU recruiting perspective, what's your overall feelings just at this point as we speak and record May 23rd? A lot to be done over the summer. The barbecue's coming up next month. But what's your overall feeling as far as recruiting?
I still feel really good. Still have a lot of confidence in what this coaching staff and this recruiting staff is doing. Obviously, the barbecue coming up, that is a bit, it's going to be a big time weekend. We've already, sent out the graphic. We've already talked about some of the elite talent from all over the country that's going to be making their way to Norman for those 3 days. So it's going to be pivotal for, this coaching staff. Former alumni, former players are going to be back on there to, basically, go all out in making these kids feel like a priority, trying to paint the picture for them on this is what it looks like, this is what it feels like, these are the possibilities that are presented to you when you come and play at a place like Oklahoma. So again, in terms of I think we'll stay on the Sims train and talking about defensive line position specifically, but I think that one of the things that Oklahoma fans truly have to realize is just because you have Brent Venables on as your head coach with the pedigree and the success that he's had as a defensive coordinator, just because you've got Todd Bates, who's put countless number of guys into the NFL, he's got a proven track record from his time at Clemson, putting those elite level guys in the NFL playing on Sundays. at the end of the day, you're going into the SEC and at a position like the defensive line, where it's probably the most highly sought after group in the country because of the fact that there's so few elite guys that can play that position across the board. I don't care if you think that as we sit here on May 23rd, you think you're in a good position for David Stone or Nigel Smith or Williams Winery. When you've got guys like Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Texas, everybody is all hands on deck doing anything and everything that they can. Some things illegal, some things legal, to get these kids to be part of their recruiting class. So I don't care how the recruiting sites and some of the insiders. I don't care how confident you feel in the way that this is. We've read this book, we've seen this movie one too many times. I'm not believing anything that's going to happen with defensive line recruiting until the ink hits the paper in December, and we can actually, confirm that these guys are part of OU's 2024 class. So, but again, to put a bow on this, I feel good about where Oklahoma is. They've got a lot of momentum across the board in some really good positions. They're in on a lot of good elite guys. Now it's just on this coaching staff, to use NIL to our advantage. But also, you got to go out there this fall and you got to win football games. I don't care how good your NIL pitch is. If you go out there and you lay another egg, a 7-5, 8-4 season, I don't care what it is. There's no excuse for that. You've got to go out there and you've got to put the solid quality, positive product on the field, and you've got to give these kids more than just a we're Oklahoma reason to come play for this program.
We spent a ton of time, for good reason, talking about the defensive line, because if you have highly rated players there, it takes a lot of stress off of the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
defense and even the offense as well, where maybe you don't have to have as many elite players that OU's used to having. You can get away with a
Mm-hmm.
lot less across the board. I'll ask you this question. I'll answer it first to give you some time to think about it. But is there a position group outside of the defensive line, because there's so many elite guys that OU's going after there? Is there a position group that you'd like to see OU surge a little bit more in to get some higher, rated players, or just, give you more hope, or I guess promise for what OU could finish with that position group? And my answer for that probably is linebackers. It's kind of a little bit of a mystery to me that OU hasn't done a little bit better with the linebacker position. Peyton Pierce currently committed to Ohio State. He's a 5-star out of the Dallas area. And then Sammy Brown coming in for the barbecue next month. But we all think that's probably an uphill battle. Clemson and Georgia, probably the two favorites there. So unlikely that OU might be able to land him, but we've seen crazier things happen last summer with guys committing to OU. So linebacker's one that I would like to see a lot more success with, considering that is a Brent Venables position, even though he's
Mm-hmm.
not officially the coach there. But is there a position group that you would like to see a little bit more success or momentum on the recruiting trail?
Yeah, 1000% agree with you on the linebackers. It's something that Brent Venables and Ted Roof, they've got their work cut out for them. I do like what we've done over the last 18 months, bringing in some of those guys, but you go down the board and you look at some of the linebackers that are playing in Tuscaloosa or Athens. Oklahoma just simply doesn't have those type of, that caliber level of athlete in this program right now. So you've got to continue to recruit, get better at the linebacker position. I didn't think that I would ever say this about Oklahoma with how this position has been played over the last 15 to 20 years, but I know that Emmett Jones is doing some very good things on the recruiting trail right now. Obviously, with Zion Kearney, being the most notable recent, commit for the 2024 class. But I think the wide receiver position, just looking at what we've got in the room right now and trying to forecast what this position group is going to look like for this program over the next couple of seasons, wide receiver is another one where it doesn't feel like we've got that elite difference maker guy in the program right now. Obviously, we just lost Marvin Mims to the Denver Broncos, but the Keon Brown news, him having to go the JUCO route instead of coming to Oklahoma. I think that there were a lot of guys that had him pegged as being able to come in and have an opportunity to maybe compete for some reps, maybe take a few reps away from a Jaden Gibson or, some of the other guys like that just haven't proven that they've been able to, play consistently at this level of football. So yeah, wide receiver is another position for me. But I mean, at the end of the day, with where this program is right now and with where we're headed, for me, you got to stay in the front seven on the defensive side of football. So D linemen, linebackers, Oklahoma's doing a fantastic job right now out on the defensive end rush position with what Chavis and Venables and Bates are bringing in. But you got to beef things up on the interior, and you got to get more. You got to get bigger, faster, stronger, more athletic at the linebacker position. And we'll see what Oklahoma can do.